There is a strange kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being rejected or left behind. It appears quietly, almost politely, at a moment when your life seems to be working. You have made progress. You are more stable than before. You are closer to the version of yourself you once imagined. And yet, something feels increasingly distant. The conversations that used to energize you now feel thin. The people around you are still there, but the sense of being truly understood has weakened. You did not lose anyone dramatically. You simply outgrew a shared emotional rhythm. This is the loneliness that often arrives at your peak. Not because you failed socially, but because growth changes the internal coordinates by which you relate to others. Modern culture rarely talks about this. We celebrate progress, achievement, and self-improvement as if they naturally lead to deeper connection. In reality, they often lead to separation. Not out of arrogance or superiority, but out of misalignment. As you change, your inner questions change. And not everyone around you is asking the same ones. Friedrich Nietzsche described this process as individuation, the movement away from the collective toward a more honest self. It is not a comfortable process. It requires leaving behind borrowed identities, shared illusions, and familiar ways of belonging. When you begin to see more clearly, you also begin to see how much of social connection is built on mutual distraction. Many relationships survive not because of depth, but because of synchronized avoidance. When that synchronization breaks, distance appears. This is often misunderstood as emotional failure. People assume that if they feel alone, something must be wrong with them, that they have become cold, difficult, or disconnected. But loneliness at this stage is not the result of emotional deficiency. It is the cost of awareness. As your inner life becomes more precise, vague connections feel increasingly unsatisfying. You start to notice when conversations revolve around noise rather than meaning. You feel present, but not accompanied. Albert Camus would argue that this sense of isolation is not pathological. It is existential. Consciousness itself is solitary. No matter how close we are to others, no one can fully inhabit our internal experience. Growth sharpens this realization. When life was harder, urgency masked this truth. Shared struggle created effortless bonding. But when survival is no longer the main task, the separation becomes visible. Comfort removes the glue. At your peak, you may look around and realize that fewer people can walk beside you, not because they are incapable, but because they are simply on different paths. This realization can feel heavy. It tempts you to regress, to make yourself smaller, quieter, more familiar in order to restore connection. But shrinking does not create intimacy. It only delays the inevitable recognition that some relationships were context-dependent, not timeless. The mistake is assuming that loneliness must be fixed immediately, that it is an error state requiring distraction, stimulation, or replacement. But not all loneliness is a problem to solve. Some of it is a threshold. It marks the transition between automatic belonging and intentional connection, between being surrounded and being understood. This transition feels empty because it removes quantity before quality arrives. This does not mean the future is solitary. It means it will be selective. Fewer relationships, but more precise ones. Slower bonds, built on shared clarity rather than shared confusion. This takes patience, and it requires the courage to remain alone without numbing the discomfort. Many people never reach this stage because they rush to fill the silence. They trade depth for familiarity. They choose noise over truth. To stand alone at your peak is not a sign that you have failed socially. It is a sign that your inner life has become more differentiated. You are no longer held together by external pressure. You are guided by internal alignment. That shift always reduces the crowd. It also creates the conditions for real connection to emerge later, quietly, without force. You are not broken. You are just awake. An awakening often feels exactly like this. Standing at a high place, aware of how far you have come, and finally able to see who can truly stand beside you.